Hey, welcome. Do me a favor for a second. Without turning your head, can you see what's directly behind you? No, of course not. Our entire world is built on three simple directions, right? Forward, backward, left, right, up, down. But what if there's another direction? A fourth one, passing right by you at this very moment, completely invisible. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, exploring the absolutely mind-bending ideas in Rudy Rucker's book, The Fourth Dimension.
So let's start with a little thought experiment to warm up our brains. Imagine a solid steel box, sealed shut, completely locked. Can you see what's inside without opening it? I mean, the answer seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? No way. Impossible.
But get this, for a being that can perceive the fourth dimension, it's not just possible, it's easy, it's effortless. They can see inside that box as clearly as you can see the stuff in an open shoebox. So how on earth does that work? Let's break it down.
To even start to understand the fourth dimension, we first have to wrap our heads around the limits of our own world. You know, we're all living inside this kind of invisible cage, a prison made of the very reality we just take for granted every single day. And that prison is three-dimensional space. Every single move you can possibly make, every object you can touch, it all exists along these three axes: forward and backward, left and right, up and down. That's it. That's the whole game for us. There's nowhere else to go.
To really get this, imagine a flatlander, some little 2D character living on a perfectly flat piece of paper. It understands length and width, but the very idea of up or height, that's just complete nonsense to it. But you, a 3D being, you could just look down and see every single part of its 2D world, inside and out, all at once. So Rucker's book asks this really powerful question. Are we just the flatlanders in our own 3D world, totally oblivious to some higher dimension looking down on us?
Okay, so how do we even begin to imagine this fourth dimension? We can't just, look over and see it. We have to build our way up to it. We have to climb this ladder of dimensions one rung at a time.
So let's start with a single point. That's 0 dimensions. Now stretch that point out, and boom, you get a one-dimensional line. Now take that line and stretch it out at a perfect right angle, you get a two-dimensional square. You see the pattern, right? Take that square and stretch it out at a right angle to its surface, and you get a three-dimensional cube. That's our world. The logic feels simple, doesn't it? To get to the fourth dimension, you just stretch the entire cube at a 90-degree angle to all three directions at once. The problem is, where in the world is that direction?
Well, even if we can't point in that direction, we can follow the math. And if we could perform that stretch, we would create a four-dimensional cube. It's called a hypercube, or maybe you've heard the term tesseract. We can't build one, we can't see one, but we can study it, and most importantly, we can see its shadow.
Now, this shadow idea is really the key to visualizing the unvisualizable. Think about it. A 3D object, like a wireframe cube, casts a flat 2D shadow on the ground. Following that exact same logic, a 4D hypercube would cast a 3D shadow, an actual object that we could see and touch in our world. And it would look something like a cube inside of another cube with all the corners connected.
Okay, so we've built this abstract idea of a fourth dimension, and we've even glimpsed its shadow. But now we get to the really wild part. What would it actually be like to see the world from that higher vantage point? I mean, really try to imagine this for a second. If you could suddenly perceive in 4 spatial dimensions, what would our world actually look like? It wouldn't just be a little different. No, everything would fundamentally change. Your abilities would basically be superpowers to the rest of us. Remember how we could see everything on that flat piece of paper all at once? Well, a 4D being could see everything in our 3D world simultaneously. They'd see the outside of a building and the inside of every single room. They could literally watch your heart beating inside your chest. They could even do impossible things like unlink 2 solid steel rings without breaking them just by nudging one of them through the fourth dimension. For a being with 4D perception, our whole idea of inside versus outside just completely dissolves. There are no barriers, there are no locked doors, there are no secrets. Our entire world would just be an open book. And here's where it gets really crucial. This has massive implications. Think about it. Our entire society is built on 3D ideas. Private property, personal space, locks on our doors. All of these things depend on the idea that something can be enclosed, hidden away. From a 4D perspective,
all of those fundamental concepts, they just fall apart. They become meaningless. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like a really fun, philosophical head trip, maybe something out of science fiction. But these ideas about higher dimensions, they aren't just thought experiments anymore. They are right at the very heart of modern theoretical physics. When most of us hear fourth dimension, we immediately think of time. And you're not wrong. Thanks to Einstein, his theory of space-time treats time as the fourth dimension that we're all constantly moving through. But what Rucker's book is really focused on is a different and maybe even stranger possibility, another spatial dimension, one just like length, width, and height, but existing at a right angle to our reality. And let me tell you, physicists have taken this idea and just run with it. The leading theories today, like M-theory, don't just stop at one extra dimension. For the math to work, they require a universe with up to 11 dimensions. 11? So where are they? Well, the leading theory is that they're not missing at all. They're just hidden. The idea is that they're curled up so incredibly tightly, at a scale smaller than an atom, that we just can't see them. The best analogy is a power line. From far away, it just looks like a one-dimensional line, right? But for a tiny ant walking on it, there's a whole other dimension to explore, the path around its circumference. Our universe might be just like that. It seems 3D to us, but it could have these tiny, curled-up dimensions all around us, maybe even holding the answers to huge mysteries like gravity. So this all brings us to a final and pretty profound question. If higher dimensions aren't just some sci-fi fantasy, but are actually plausible according to modern physics, what does that say about the reality that we experience every single day? This goes way back to the ancient philosopher Plato. He told this famous story about prisoners who have been chained in a cave their whole lives, just staring at a wall. Behind them, a fire cast shadows of real objects onto that wall. For the prisoners, these flickering 2D shadows aren't just shadows, they are reality. They have no concept of the real 3D world that's casting them. And this is where Rudy Rucker's book applies that ancient idea to modern physics, and it just hits you like a ton of bricks. What if we are those prisoners? What if our entire, rich, three-dimensional universe is nothing more than a shadow, a projection cast into our limited perception from a higher, four-dimensional reality that is the true world? And maybe that's the ultimate takeaway from this whole journey. It suggests that the most significant prison we live in might not be the 3 dimensions that contain our bodies, but the perceptual limits that contain our minds. It's a challenge to remember that what we see is almost certainly not all there is, and that reality is always far, far grander and stranger and more mysterious than we can possibly imagine.